I'd like to call this meeting to order and recognize that tonight's meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw people. Any transfer of items to the open meeting agenda? Seeing none. Any additions? Seeing none. Any deletions? Seeing none. Any change in the order? Seeing none. Any objection to the approval of the agenda? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes. 7.1, the Board of Education of School District 68 adopt the minutes from the regular board meeting held April 25th, 2018. Anybody have any objection to that? Seeing none. 7.2, that the Board of Education of School District 68 adopt the minutes of the regular board meeting held May 23rd, 2018. Does anybody have any objection to that? Seeing none. 8.1, Section 72 report from the closed meeting held May 23rd. That the Section 72.3 report of the closed meeting of May 23rd, 2018 be received. Does anybody have any objection to that? Seeing none. That the Section 72 report from the special closed board meeting held June 6, 2018 be received. Does anybody have any objection to that? Seeing none, moving right along here. That the Section 72 report of the special closed board meeting held June 13th, 2018 be received. Does anybody have any objection to that? Seeing none. Announcements. School opens for students Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. This is obviously for next season, school season. Education Committee meeting Wednesday, September 5th, 2018. Business Committee meeting September 12th. The regular board meeting September 26th. All at 6 p.m. right here. Non-instructional day, curriculum in service day, Thursday, October 4th. A second non-instructional day, school-based Pro-D day, Friday, October 5th. We have no presentations. Correspondence. Correspondence 11.1, that the Board of Education of School District 68 receive and file the above correspondence re SOGI. Does anybody have any objection to that? Seeing none. 11.2, that the Board of Education of School District 68 receive and file the above correspondence re letter of intent. Does anybody have any objection to that? Seeing none. Trustee zone reports. Trustee Berzovic.
I'll be quick. Mine's really short. I had the honor of attending it was a Spark Night at Dover, which was where the grade 8 students presented their inquiry projects that they've been doing on the year, and it was absolutely amazing. And these are students in grade 8, and just the variety of topics and the depth of work that they've done in terms of the learning and the knowledge that they've been working on. Like there was everything from something on skateboarding to something on homelessness, and the whole range in between. It was just really, really amazing. And then they also had a barbecue and cake and so on and so forth to sort of celebrate the end of the year. It was really neat. Tomorrow I will be attending the final assembly at Rutherford School, which of course will be a very sad occasion, as it will be literally the final assembly. So I will be there, and then in the afternoon I'll be at Dover's graduation. And just as we're aware, one of the main thing that I've been hearing about from people is concerns about the letter that just came out around the out of catchment for elementary, the moratorium on out of catchment placement. So just an awareness that people are frustrated by the process and that they didn't know about it. And also, before I forget, there's been some concerns from the parents of Rutherford around the Frank Ney move, just around the sign. There was some signage put out. I think it's been dealt with, but I just wanted everybody to be aware. There was the Haste group that did the work around the Safe Schools, or the Safe Walk, sorry. There was some signage put out that people felt was not accurate. It sort of said 5-minute walk, and as someone who can't walk, I don't quite grasp it all. But it was a 5-minute walk from point 1 to point 2, and people were like, there's no way you're walking that in 5 minutes. And I believe the signs have come down, and they're working to address the concerns, but I just thought people should be aware of that. And just in general, everybody's been really, really busy. Assemblies there were some assemblies things today that I got invited to that I couldn't be at because of tonight's meeting, and then retirement functions. Attended the Pride Parade, I believe was a couple of weeks ago. That was really well done. Special thanks to the Transportation Department for their efforts to get a bus to get me in, and for the extra work they did when that bus broke down, when the lift broke down. No, so that's June.
Thank you very much. Trustee Routley?
I have a short presentation, but I'm just requesting, just because me and Trustee Higginson have to go soon, if we could just change the order of the agenda a little bit and just.
Well, we've already gone through that, and there was an opportunity when we talked about
Yeah.
that. So.
Oh no, it's okay. Just verbally, you said it's coming up right away.
It's coming up after we get through this.
So yeah, I've heard some just challenges from different families in the district, just in regards to the elementary school and out of catchment and concerns there, and then also Hammond Bay corridor walking in that area. That's about all I have for just the walk limits there, and just the danger of Hammond Bay. Yeah.
Thank you. Trustee Solomon?
Yeah, a couple of things. I know we can do better in certain areas, but I'm really, really glad to have the option to celebrate some of the great things that the district does on a regular basis, and the fact that there's a communication strategy to actually tell people about some of the good things that are happening. And it's it's extremely heartwarming to go to an event like the graduation ceremonies, and I think a lot of people have read about that we have a 92-year-old graduate from Island Connect, Miss Joan D. Bank, and to hear that story is incredible, and the fact that the district supports people, learning alternatives or through Island Connect. To get to that stage, I think that's really commendable for our district, and I'm really glad that we can do that in this area. We also talk about the truth and reconciliation as a board goal, and it's an important goal, and I think that there was a lot of recognition of that inside the schools on Aboriginal Awareness, Indigenous Day. Certainly one of the main one that I was able to attend, I thought it was excellent at Cedar Elementary. They had been planning this for a long time. Each of the classes did their own totem. They had a ceremony, but it was also the history of how they came to this story of some of the issues around the truth and reconciliation, and so I think that's a real learning process, and I think that that's where we need to go with this process. The kids to understand how we came to this point and where we're at, and I think it was a really, really powerful event for there. So I was really glad about that. The Cedar High School, I was able to attend the graduation there, and I'm very, very thankful to do that. And each of the schools and each of the high schools really do reflect their own community, and they're all different. And I think, again, that's one of the things that happen in this specific district, is that we have a real range of in our district, and we always talk south is not like quite the same as the north. Lanceville is not like Cedar. Ladysmith is its own unique. We're different, and I'm really glad that our schools reflect that. It was a very personal. It was a bit of a smaller group. They could actually talk about each individual graduate, and I think that that's a really important thing. And it makes it very personal and a really wonderful event for the community. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Trustee Kinley?
Yeah, so since it's the last board meeting of the year, I thought I would celebrate the school year by
Your time is up.
with 5 stories that celebrate how our communities are supporting our students. So the first one comes from Ladysmith Secondary School, and it's regarding grad bursaries. And for such a small town of approximately 8,500 residents, Ladysmith sure does support its secondary schools graduates with post-secondary bursaries. During the graduation ceremony this year, 98,600 $50 worth of bursaries were handed out before the convocation ceremony. And this doesn't include some of the LSS awards that were handed out at the Port Place Awards event, where all told, 216 awards were handed out to students across the district, totaling $201,950. So a big thank you to the businesses, organizations, and donors who support our students transitioning into post-secondary. And the second one comes from Ecole North Oyster, and I'm sure we've all heard the story that they're the grand prize winner in the BCAA Play Here 2018 contest. So they're one of 3 grand prize winners for the online contest, and each of the place-based grand prize winners will receive revitalizations worth up to $100,000. The other 2 grand prize winners were Cache Creek Elementary, which is in Thompson, Okanagan, and McKinsey Recreation Center, which is a community playground. The competition began on March 27th and consisted of a judging round and a voting round, and Ecole North Oyster made it past the judging round, landing into the top 10. And judging was based on the following criteria: impact to the community, 50%, practicality or complexity of the project, 30%, description of how the $100,000 would be used, 10%, and the quality, creativity, and effort put into the submission, which was worth 10%. So the voting round ran from May 29th to June 17th, and PAC consistently and creatively solicited votes from anyone and everyone. Hopefully many of us in this room voted up to 4 times a day from various social media platforms, including verified email vote. Whatever they did worked, because E&O ended up in the top spot with approximately 75,000 votes. So a great job to the PAC and all of those who actively voted, promoted, tweeted, and reposted calls to vote. And then I have a link to their project. And then I don't really have anything specific for LPS or LIS, but I wanted to give a shout out to all the parents and community members that help support students throughout the school year. And I'm talking mostly about PAC, because so whether it's fundraising, hosting hot lunches, helping with fun fairs, participating in meetings, whatever it is, you rock. Thanks to all the PACs for helping make another great school year. And then the last 2 items I have are for closer to home, and a little disappointed that Jeff didn't mention them during his little trustee thing. But so North Cedar Fire Department went to Cedar Elementary and served hot lunch to 350 kids. And let me tell you, I have a renewed appreciation for PACs that serve hot lunches, because we had to make hot dogs for 350 kids, and it wasn't just hot dogs, it was hot dogs with ketchup, hot dogs with mustard, hot dogs with mustard and ketchup, hot dogs with no mustard or ketchup, or, you know, you're gluten-free. So, and we had to deliver those to all the classrooms all at one time. Anyway, we set up a fit challenge for them. The kids, for both long and short recesses, played with that. I saw Trustee Higgins and kids were very eager to do that. They had a great time. Anyway, it was a renewed appreciation. And then the other item was also from the North Cedar Fire Department, and the high school there doesn't have a gym currently. And
They have a gym.
well, with not very much equipment in it. Or they have a gym, but they don't have a fitness weight room. Thank you. But the North Cedar Fire Hall has donated $2,500 to help them outfit that with some equipment. So anyway, celebrations across the district.
Great, thank you. Trustee Robinson?
Well, now that you've had barbecue hot dog experience, you can be an honorary member of my Rotary Club. We do 2 barbecues a year at Brechin and Barsby, and maybe you could teach us some stuff. You never can tell. Took us Thomsch, it's way back, and I'm sure I've talked about it to everyone. A huge success, twice as many students this year as in past. Name changed from Spuptitel competition to sharing. Took us Thomsch, sharing and celebrating the language and culture. And the symposium had its bumpy parts, but I would think it qualifies as a success at Port Place, and we're looking at possibly trying to share that with other districts next year. That's up for discussion, but it should continue. The people from across the island and many from the mainland were here for the event. The Best Me I Can Be has wrapped up for the year. waiting for a couple of more reports from teachers, and I'll put something together to try and promote it more widely to other trustees and other schools. It definitely had an impact on classrooms and a number of individual students, a positive impact. The Pride Parade was great fun to be in, and if you haven't been there yet, next year, it's great. We had 3 SD 68 buses, both unions had a bus, and the admin had a bus, and it was great fun. I'm not sure if I mentioned here, 20 years ago I was living in the old high-rise and I saw 25 to 30 people walking along the seawall, and they had some flags or whatever. My first thought was, I hope some rednecks don't attack these people and beat them up. Well, with, I would guess, a couple of thousand people lining the street and close to 1,000 in the parade, no rednecks were going to. And as one of the people I know said to me, he said, I was in that parade with 25 to 30 people. But he said, now you bloody straights are stealing our parade, because a great mixture of people in the parade. I will finish up tomorrow, and Mandy Jones and Bill Taylor's Premier's Award for Excellence in Education. Putting it together is a little more work than I thought, but worth it. And we all have our fingers crossed, because what they're doing with the land-based education program is incredible, absolutely incredible. Bayview, speaking about incredible, man, last Friday, first time for that school, I know other schools do this, but they have in the past welcomed students on the last, or parents into the school for a more formal event. This time they're right out front with muffins and donuts and coffee and tea, and all the teachers out. It was really positive. Then on Monday, they had a grad lunch for grade 7 students that was really well done. And yesterday, they had a celebration for reserve students, and the chief was there, 2 or 3 counselors were there, dancers and singers from Stanamus. It was exceptional, a lot of First Nations parents there. And tomorrow they have the official grad with mortar boards and the whole deal for grade 7. So they're certainly doing it up well. I was really pleased with what I saw. I spent a lot of time at Bayview this year, and that entire staff is really connecting with the community. They're talking about reconciliation. They're certainly moving in the right direction. I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
First, with regard to the Pride Parade, I participated in another group in the Pride Parade, but I was really pleased to see the turnout from School District 68. Loud, raucous, proud. And interestingly, I was at a meeting at the downtown library on Monday, and there is a display put on by the Nanaimo Pride Society of how difficult it was to get the former city council to declare Pride Week. And they've got clippings from all of the Nanaimo Daily Free Press and the Nanaimo News Bulletin and so forth, which was finally resolved when the councillors were told that if they refused to vote in favor of Pride Week, that they would be in they would be working against the Human Rights Act, and they were liable to be taken to court or taken to the Human Rights Commission with a complaint of human rights violations. So they quickly, actually some of them left the room to try to avoid a quorum, but enough remained to vote in favor of Pride Week, and it finally turned. But it was a very difficult, prolonged process. And the results of the march, I think, show that we've come a long way since then. I attended the opening of the Bowen Road Aboriginal housing project. There was quite a good turnout there. They're absolutely beautiful dwellings, and they have the totem, which attracts attention, slows traffic on Bowen Road, and the Métis symbol as well. I also attended the new immigrant welcome reception at the conference center last Saturday afternoon, and it's really an inspiring event. It's very positive. People are they're almost beyond understanding or believing what's going on, because they're being welcomed and appreciated. And from where they've come from, one man had come from Uganda via the Congo, another war-torn part of the world, and they're treated as good people, and there's smiles around, and lots of kids, including my granddaughter, who tried her best to wreck the flagpoles. But that's another story. And I was asked to speak, so I did sort of welcome them to the school district, the children, and explained how our district values every person's child, and they will be given excellent treatment and education. And I also reflected on a trip to Halifax my wife and I took recently. We went to Pier 21, which was the arrival port or arrival dock for most immigrants from Europe, and they have a service there where they will look up your relatives if they can find them, or if they came via Pier 21. And I was able to find the manifest with copies, with the listing of my grandmother and the 4 children she brought across from Norway and made her way by rail to North Vancouver, and also my grandfather, who came from Greenock with his then 5 children, soon to be 6. And ended up in North Vancouver as well. So it was interesting to reflect on the immigrant experience from a personal point of view, and how difficult it was then, and how difficult it is still now for some people to escape very, very difficult circumstances. I am going to speak at the Wellington Grad on Friday, and I'm trying to get my speech shortened from 40 minutes to 30 minutes, and I'm having great difficulty, but I'm sure somebody can help me along the way. So,
Bill can help you with that.
yeah. Yeah, right.
45 to 50.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it. From the Business Committee, Secretary Treasurer McVeigh.
On page 41 of your agenda is an action sheet with our annual budget bylaw that you have already seen in our last meeting. Just want to point out that the first motion that's before the board is a motion to give the budget bylaw all 3 readings in one meeting. And pursuant to the School Act, the board cannot give a bylaw more than 2 readings at any one meeting unless it's unanimous. So that's the first motion that I would look for.
Trustee Kimler?
Yeah, so moved, or move motion, second.
Second by Trustee Brennan. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, motion 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so motion 2, 3, and 4 is the actual reading of the bylaw. Again, it needs to be read 3 times in order for the budget to be passed and adopted. Trustee Kimler, did you want to read the bylaw, or would you?
Oh, nice move.
Yeah.
Hey, that's well done.
I actually thought I was going to get out of it. Sure, I'd be happy to read the bylaw. A bylaw of the Board of Education of School District Number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, called the board to adopt the annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2018/2019 pursuant to Section 113 of the School Act, RSBC 1996. C 412 as amended from time to time, called the Act. Number one, the board has complied with the provisions of the act respecting the annual budget adopted by this bylaw. Two, that this bylaw may be cited as School District Number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith Annual Budget Bylaw for fiscal year 2018/2019. Three, the attached Statement 2 showing the estimated revenue and expenses for the 2018/19 fiscal year and the total budget bylaw amount of $157,027,013 for the 2018-19 fiscal year was prepared in accordance with the act. Number four, Statement 2, Statement 4, and Schedules 2 to 4 are adopted as the annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2018/19.
Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by trustee Higginson, seconded by trustee Solomon. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
I won't read the whole thing, just the first paragraph. A bylaw of the Board of Education of School District Number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, called the board to adopt the annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2018-19 pursuant to Section 113 of the School Act, RSBC 1996 C 412, as amended from time to time, called the act, including those 4 items that were read previously, read for a second time, 27th day of June 2018.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by trustee Higginson, second by trustee Robinson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
And the last time, a bylaw of the Board of Education of School District Number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, called the board to adopt the annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2018/19 pursuant to Section 113 of the School Act, RSBC 1996 C 412, as amended from time to time, called the act. Again, the 4 provisions as outlined, 1 through 4, and read for a third time, passed and adopted the 27th day of June 2018.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by trustee Solomon, second by trustee Higginson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Yeah? No, committee reports are what we just, this is a committee report. The business committee. I'm on it, man. Go ahead, Scott. For the business committee, the next thing, okay, I think we're done there.
Suddenly I'm confused.
Sorry.
Senior staff reports, I think, is next.
Yes. Yep. Thank you. 14.1, Superintendent Blaine.
Okay, I'm going to start this off as an apology to the board because we had to bring this forward very quickly. Since this is something that the school system needs for the beginning of September for course coding and et cetera. But in saying that, I also want to ensure the board that the 2 courses that we have here are in existence right now in the school system. They were developed many years ago, and because of the new curriculum and et cetera, that they have been rewritten and edited into the language of the day. So we're asking just for board approval for these 2 board authorized courses of Peer Tutoring 10 and Performance Leadership 10. I believe both of them are being done as we speak at John Barsby. And this will just verify the board authority of saying that these are 4 credit courses at the secondary school level.
So there's a recommendation on page 59. Would somebody, trustee Berzik? Moved by trustee Berzovic, second by trustee Kimmler. Any discussion?
Just briefly.
Yep.
I can speak from personal experience. I mean, I did a practicum in 2001 in NDSS and the 2000, I think it was. And yeah, I've seen these courses before, and I've read through the outlines, and it's the same courses. Yeah.
Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
I'd now like to call upon Mr. Sable for the 5-year capital plan, which we will be recommending to go forward to the ministry. Upon your approval, of course.
I've asked Mike Ross to join me,
Hey, Mike.
Facilities Planning Manager, to join me tonight and take part in the presentation. Mike's done the majority of the detailed work on the capital plan. So I'll bring your attention to page 75 in the action sheet. The references at the...
Sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Through the chair, I'll refer the board to the action sheet, the first page under the reference section. And there's a few items that we've referenced there. One of them is the capital program summary sheets. And so attached behind the action sheet are printouts from the ministry software that indicates the project by programs and the order, the priority order of the projects by each of the programs. And that, in a sense, forms our capital submission. There's a more detailed spreadsheet behind it, but if we tried to print it out on an 11 by 17 sheet, it'd be unreadable. The next item is the 1819 capital plan response letter, and we'll be talking about that, but that's one of the springboards by which we refer to because that's the projects they approved last year. The other item of reference is the facilities plan itself, which was updated with the board in April 25th, 2018. So we use that as a reference point as well when we're looking at the capital plan to make sure that the projects requested are in alignment with the long-range facilities planning. I also want to note in that document, staff indicate that we plan to undertake a renewal of the long-range facilities plan in 18-19 school year. So this plan is not this plan is a further iteration of last year's plan and is reflective of all of the discussions we've had with respect to planning. And of course, then tonight we have this capital slideshow itself, which links everything together, hopefully now. Mike and I have a series of slides to go through, and some of them same format as last year. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt. You won't be interrupting any particular flow or presentation. I did want to refer to the recommendation at the top of the page of the action sheet, and that's what staff are looking for the board to consider tonight at the end of the presentation. Did I get everything? So a couple of things as we get started. There's a couple of items of note just to sort of housekeeping. One of them is that programs continue to be prioritized on their own. So the board doesn't pass a plan that's from 1 to 100. The ministry's asked us to categorize those into certain components and then provide priorities for each one, and Mike and I will go through those tonight. The other item is the provision of a project request fact sheet. I'll let Mike talk a little bit about those details.
The project request fact sheet, just have to wrap my mouth around it still, 2 years in. The DFRS, that's how I call it now. It replaces a PIR. It basically forms a business case for any of our capital requests. They're only required in the first 3 years of the capital plan in the expansion, seismic, and replacement categories. Yeah, that's the PFRS.
And then the board has, staff have done a little bit of work with respect to providing an enhanced PRFS in some cases, and we'll explain that a little bit as well. Staff are still working with respect to considering a contribution to some of our requests for the school enhancement funds. So we have in the past put forward a contribution of AFG funding towards seismic enhancement, not seismic, school enhancement program, and we have received a significant amount of funding in return. So we're looking at that again this year. And Mike will talk a little bit more about school enhancement. They are looking at a maximum of 5 projects. I think we received 3 of our asks last year. So we'll talk about 2. Top 2, okay. So a few things we continue to work on. So if the board considers the motion, there's a lot of background detail we're still assembling for submission at by Saturday midnight, I guess it's June 30th. And And so we're continuing to update the PRFS items, and I just got some business case information in at 4:30 today, so it keeps pouring in. We're working to finalize the attached consulting reports, project costings, enrollment forms, and other SEP development. So essentially, it's the projects in the priority order that we're looking at. The rest of the details staff will fill in, and then continue to work with the ministry even after submission.
Yeah, and part of the work I'm doing at the ministry is sending down draft reports to get some feedback from them to make sure that we key in on the information that they use to prioritize from their end.
So Mike and I have had ongoing, as have other staff, ongoing consultation and collaboration with the Capital Delivery Branch, coordinating with ministry planning staff all throughout the year, sending them updates of our projects, making sure they're aware of what we're thinking, sending them updates from the boards when significant items have been happening. Staff then attended 2 separate conferences. I attended the BC ASBO, Mike the EFMA, made contact with our planning officers, shared our thinking with respect to the upcoming plan. They're well aware of the plan, and we continue to work closely with them with respect to the seismic retrofit, and we'll talk about that in more detail as well. So at the ASBO session, Joel Palmer, the Executive Director, and Rochelle Ray presented some information that we thought the board might be interested in. So we've taken a couple of their slides. And a couple of the items the ministry talked about is they continue to look to accelerate their seismic program. And we'll talk about that in more detail. They've added the $5 million of playground, and they did announce 1 playground for school districts earlier this year, and then in our submission in June, we have 3 more that we've added in, and so they're trying to roll those projects out quite quickly. Building upgrades in all regions of the provinces. You probably heard that there were high growth districts were targeted in the last few years. Now they're starting to look out into other districts to try and assess their needs as well and reduce portables. Perhaps our Hammond Bay expansion is supported under either 3 or 4 or a combination of those, where they're not just focused on the Surreys. They want to reduce portables, and they're looking at childcare spaces as part of the NLC. The capital priorities remain safety, seismic, health and safety, schools protection, and maintaining what they have, the SEP, the CNCP, the BEP, and the AFG. So it's same thing again this year with respect to funding. And they're looking at expansion in areas of growth, priority capacity expansions, new site acquisitions, new schools, etc. So the capital planning cycle, we're over on the right-hand side in June. The capital plans are due. When we submit it to the ministry, they start the process right away in reviewing them this summer. So October to June, they do the ministry review. In March, the capital plan response letters are issued, and then March and April, we go through the process of the capital plan again. So we're, the key part for us is the June to October, that the ministry understands the capital plan, and in our case, all of the detailed work we've done behind the scenes to align our capital plans with all of our other activities, asset management, strategic planning, strategic partnerships, etc. Then we review the plan with the capital planning officer. Mike's currently been doing that, and then we submit it with the resolution. A little bit more detail for you to look at as to what happens between July and October. I won't go through that slide in detail. And then a little bit about what happens after your plan's submitted, what happens if your projects don't get supported, etc. So we work with the ministry to understand from the previous year what happened, why certain projects didn't get supported, so that we can consider how we make our cases more robust. This is a key slide for us as well. You can see that the 18-19 budget was 483. The 19-20 budget is now 622. 2021, it's 652. Again, the majority seismic, upgrading seismic is in that funding. So let's go back and look at that. Yeah, the 234 million for seismic upgrading. So this is a copy of our actual response letter and from last year. And while it's difficult to read, these are the projects that were on the list. So Hammond Bay expansion PDR, so they supported our expansion at Hammond Bay, and we're now going through a project development report that's due September 5th. And in that submission, we are considering an option of requesting from them some neighborhood of learning space. And so in that, we're considering daycare and working with other strategic partners to see if there's interest in that. Hammond Bay HVAC Phase 2, we've combined that with the gym expansion, the locally funded gym expansion. And those are proceeding together. The projects have been awarded and they're starting up on the site very shortly. And Mike, as we speak, I'll let you finish the other.
We got 2 dust extractors in last year's plan, so Dover Bay and Wellington, those contracts have been awarded and those are starting next week. They'll be wrapped up by the end of summer. And Park Avenue, that was a project that was awarded through SEP. Due to budgets for the other SEP projects that we tendered, we've put that one on hold. It's tender ready. We did tender the project. We may choose to either reduce the scope and try and implement this year based on how the other project budgets flush out as we move through those.
So a little bit about seismic. So seismic health and safety continue to be the #1 priority for the ministry. We've been working with the ministry's consultant with respect to reassessing our facilities based on the new building code. And they funded us approximately $188,000, and we've hired 3 engineering firms to review 91 blocks in our schools. And a block is essentially an age of construction, a standalone portion of construction of a certain age that has a certain structure that can be identified. And so there could be one school with many blocks, like NDSS, for instance, has 4 main blocks to it. So what we did was, understanding that we have some strategic priorities in our capital plan, we asked the engineering companies to advance the seismic review of NDSS and LIS so that we could get the rating a little quicker than the ministry's deadline. Both schools were re-rated as H1 projects. So they've gone to the #1 on the seismic list, and H1s are projects, H1s and 2s are projects that the ministry wants to address in a priority manner. So that kind of changes how we look at them in the capital plan, and our submission reflects that. So they've been moved to the seismic section in the capital plan out of the renovation section, renewal section, as seismic is now the primary driver, not condition. And there wasn't much hope trying to get projects based on condition. And so this is a little bit more optimistic for us. So all of the results are expected to the ministry in late August, and then the ministry is going to use that information and consider how they're going to implement this. And essentially, it's all of Vancouver Island's going to be re-rated, and Richmond. Yes.
Trustee Brennan has a question.
I just learned that the Victoria School District intends to renew or rehabilitate, renovate Victoria High School. It's the oldest high school in Victoria, at least. And it's going to cost $73 million. Now, what's the ministry's thinking towards or about shared costs? Because I know the Sault School District had to sell some property and realize money to pay their share of construction of the new high schools there. What are we looking at in terms of NDSS? Is there the possibility of a rebuild, a renovation? Because it's very old and it isn't heritage in my view.
I'll speak to the cost share portion, and then a little bit later on we talk in more detail about the NDSS submission. So last year in the capital plan instructions, the ministry had a section on cost sharing for capital projects. They've removed that for this year. So they're a little less prescriptive with respect to cost sharing, and they're leaving it more as a discussion between the district and the ministry at the appropriate times. We'll, at the appropriate time of support for ND, we'll have an opportunity to work through that process with them. So we'll get right into the call for the capital plan instruction, and I'll let Mike speak to this a little bit.
The projects in the capital plan submission are broken down into these categories. There's the SMP program, which is the seismic mitigation, expansion projects, replacement projects, envelope program, that's the BEP, school enhancement, the SEP, the carbon neutral, the CNCP, school bus replacement, and this year new to the annual plan submission is the playground enhancement program.
So the seismic mitigation program, as I indicated, we've added Ladysmith Intermediate and NDSS, and we made NDSS our #1. We've also moved Solaire up in the priority because one of the blocks came back rated H1. And we've included those blocks because we had that information from the engineers, although we have not got the results of all 91 blocks back yet. So we'll have to factor those in as they work through the ministry process. And I can assume our capital plan next year will look slightly different based on the results of that review. So the #1 at NDSS, it's pending the technical review board. In other words, a peer review. So if the initial engineers reviewed it and now a second engineer has to look at it to confirm the ratings. We've been working with a consulting firm, Cornerstone Architecture, and a professional cost consultant to upgrade the PFRS to basically a business case status so that we could better understand and present the information to the ministry. The request would be to go to a PDR, or in this case a seismic PDR, for the upgrade. So this is some of the information we've received just today. Of course, we want to submit it Friday with the plan. The option costings were received, and the upgrade the existing has been estimated at $110 million. The partial replacement and upgrade, this would be taking selective portions of the building and demolishing them and rebuilding them, or building a new portion first like we did at Wellington, populating it, then demolishing some building and working through that process. Could be 3 or 4 years worth of phasing. That was indicated at $90.5 million. And the replacement on site and demolition of the existing was actually shown at $70 million, or the lowest cost option. And that has to do with sort of the straightforward nature of a construction project. You find a spot on the site, you build the brand new building. The contractor has one job: build a new building. When it's finished, you move in, then you demolish the old one, remediate the sites. And so to have a contractor on site for 3 or 4 years is a tolerable. So the site is restricted, although it does not appear to require the relocation of the DAC or dock at this point. But there are some possible options for incorporating the DAC into the planning for replacement. So as we move through the next planning cycle, through ministry support, we'll be looking at those options. The location of the dock could be looked at and considered a future expansion location. So what we mean by that is that it stays for now. When we get the project, we build the new ND, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, we relocate the dock, and then that area becomes available for the site use. Ladysmith Intermediate, again, H1, subject to review. We do have an upgraded business case that we're going to submit, and again, it's the same status of ND. We're looking for the SPDR. So in the business case, we did do a land use analysis, high-level site valuation. We did some master planning around the Ladysmith secondary site that has Ladysmith primary on it, and the recreation center. And we looked at certain planning options with respect to what we could do, and one of them is upgrade the existing, again the highest. One's replacing on site, the medium cost, and there was an option to basically add on to LPS or replace it on the LPS site, and that was the lowest cost option. So this is very high level costing for all the options for evaluation, again, as we move through the planning process. Do you want to speak at all to this one, Mike? Or?
Sorry, as Pete mentioned, Solaire did go from an H1, or from an H2 to an H1 on one of the blocks, so it did go bump up into #3 on their plan. It's under review with the TRB at the moment. This SRG3 assessment has been done. We did an SPIR back 2 years ago. That's the costing that we're including in the plan this year. It's outdated. It's based on the old guidelines.
And the ministry is indicating to Mike, after he's sharing some of his work back and forth, that they might want us to triple the values of some of these projects. That's how much the construction, the market's increased over the last 3 years.
Well, and the cost of going from an H2 to an
an
H1,
H1.
different, yeah.
Same thing applies to Pleasant Valley and to Cedar Elementary. So we're still doing that work around the costing.
And these are on the list for reassessment. They haven't been done yet, so the ratings are from the SRG2.
Trustee Solomon has a question?
Yeah, I did want to ask about the costing. So when you point out those numbers for the high school,
Yes.
Are you talking, you say they're high-level costing, but are you talking that it may be considerably more than the cost that you've put out here?
No, I don't believe so. These are numbers that are done by cost consultants who work for the ministry and work for districts, costing projects for PDR stage. So the same consultants we'd use for Hammond Bays at the end of the PDR is the same consultant we're using for this project. So we've given them a significant enough planning information for them to be able to come up with reasonably accurate numbers. So we believe these numbers would vary going into the more detailed planning process, but not significantly at this point.
So for clarity's sake, I think that the only one they're talking about adding a multiplication factor to was Solaire, because it was done in 2016. These other ones are all currently costed at a high level?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
thank you.
So the next up is the expansion program. So we've got 10 submissions as part of this program. First is, well, I'll go into other detailed slides coming up, but those are the 10 that are going in with the submission. First is the Hammond Bay Elementary. It's been supported by the ministry, so as Pete mentioned, we are working through the PDR due in September. That's an increase in capacity from 40 kindergarten 200 to 40 kindergarten 375, so that's a 5 classroom addition. New to the plan this year is Dover Bay Secondary. Increased capacity from 225 to 1,300. The plan here is to fill in the unfinished D block. There's 3 classroom spaces there that are available to us. We have developed a project fact request sheet and a budget. We're working on a budget for that. Number 3, Cinnabar. Increased capacity from 40 kindergarten to 200, or from 40K 200 to 4325. Same, we're developing a PFRS with the budget. The enrollment exceeds capacity by 84 in 5 years.
Can you remember, Cinnabar was built similar to Frank Lee, was it not? Didn't Cinnabar has the ability for an extension to it? It was designed for that?
So, yeah, Cinnabar is a sister plan, if you will, of Randerson Ridge.
Oh, okay.
And we did do a master plan study, and we do have the ability to add on to it at least that much. And there's a couple of undeveloped portions of the site itself that we can move into. In the overall planning for elementary school, in the priority order, we've taken the elementaries that currently have the most portables on the site, and we've worked our way down the list to the ones that are projected to have portables on the site. And so as we work down towards the lower numbers, they typically have less portables but are projected to have more. The higher they are, they have portables now. And yeah.
Forest Park, increasing capacity from 20K 325 to 40K 400. The enrollment is projecting to exceed operating capacity by 59 in 5 years. And I'll let you speak to them.
So the 5th one is new for this year, and that's requesting an addition on the Harewood Gymnasium of a learning alternative school of approximately 200 student capacity. And at this point, there's no PRFS required based on where it is in the plan. We'll put a notional budget in, The idea is that we relocate the current function from John Barsby, possible partnerships for co-location of wraparound services, and it would also, because we'd be taking those students that occupy 5 or 6 classrooms at John Barsby, putting them on another site, that gives an opportunity to relieve pressure at the high school level or offset the use of portables.
Ladysmith Primary, looking at an increased capacity from 4175 to 6225, as enrollment exceeds operating capacity by 76 in 5 years. There are currently 4 portable classrooms on that site.
So in the, just for information, in the Ladysmith Intermediate costings, when we were looking at one of the options of upgrading, of putting the intermediate on the Ladysmith secondary primary site, we included in that project extra expansion to reduce the portables on Ladysmith Primary. So this actual project is also a component of the seismic replacement project. And there's thinking about how we might utilize that new building as swing space for seismic upgrades starting to come along as we anticipate new seismic readings in Ladysmith.
Trustee Higginson has a question.
So I'm confused by something like, and this happened with the Forest Park one as well, where it says, you know, we have 5 portables on site, but we're expected to exceed operating capacity by 76 in 5 years. If there's already 5 portables on site, wouldn't that mean we're exceeding capacity by a considerable amount already? I'm just confused by that.
Yeah, me too. And so it has to do with the type of school, primary, secondary, the size of the classes, how many students can fit in, all the Supreme Court decision class sizes. And so we've been taking a look at this and understanding that the old way of calculating the capacity of a school doesn't really stand. So this is the old way of calculating it, and as we move forward and in our individual submissions, we get into more detail. But this was a very high look at what's the current ministry's functional capacity less the Beargar enrollment projection over 5 years.
When you are talking about, you know, enrollment exceeds operating capacity by 76 in 5 years, and I've seen that on a few of the slides. I know that the ministry used to sort of require you to fill those seats as soon as the doors open. Is there a possibility now with them, with the expansion projects, to build in excess of what we might need so that we avoid having to put portables on the sites the days the doors open? Is that a possibility now? Do they allow for that? Maybe I'm not being clear.
I think that's a little bit like the amount that the ministry may look to the district to contribute to a certain project. I think the door's a little more open. The ministry is a little more open to discussing those ideas depending on the enrollment projections you have, how much growth you're looking at. They're a little less strict in that way. So if we see a situation where we want to build a little bit more, I believe they'd be open to that discussion.
Well, I also believe that the nuances of where we're going or where we are with the SEC rulings and et cetera is that there's a flex factor that will be needed in our schools around space, because 1 year is not going to match the next year. Even though the enrollment may be the same, there may be a requirement or a need for an extra classroom, and the following year that classroom may not be needed. So there'll be an ebb and flow that we'll be looking for to get that evenness, to create the continuity within a school and the space required over time.
Yeah. And I think what also plays into that is the ministry wanting to reduce portables, and so if they stick very closely to the projections, they build a new school, they could very well have a portable on there the next year and not quite fit with the direction they're going.
Cedar's next, number 7. Looking to increase the capacity from 40K 250 to 40K 375, as the enrollment is projected to exceed the operating capacity by 93. There are currently 3 portables on site. Chase River, again, increased capacity by from 20K 175 to 20K 275. Enrollment exceeds operating capacity by 109 over 5 years. Mountain View, looking to increase capacity from 40K 350 to 60K 450, as enrollment's projected to exceed operating capacity by 125 in 5 years. and North Oyster, looking to increase capacity from 20K 275 to 40K 350. Enrollment is expected to exceed operating capacity by 66 in 5 years. There are 4 portables on site come September, classroom portables.
Well, I think as you're going through this list, it's interesting to note that the school size, you know, in the days of before, we were looking at schools of 200 to 250. These numbers reflect that we're raising that up to an efficiency level in a school more to the 300s to 300 to 400 range, and in comparison to asking for new builds or new properties and et cetera. So there is certainly an efficiency categorization when we're getting up into those numbers for school efficiency. There's some negatives around that as well.
What you don't...
Hold on, Pete, there's a couple questions before we move on, if that's okay. Trustee Brennan?
Praise to Northwestern for being so entrepreneurial as to have a car wash on site.
Yeah, so that's the bathroom.
It's a washroom.
The portable washroom. Yeah. Affectionately known as a wash
got it
car,
wrong.
or in the industry known as a wash car.
Hold on, one more question. Trustee Higginson?
Thanks. You know, it's, so one comment first is that this is kind of really helps show where our pinch points are and where they're projected to be. And I think that's really important right now for people, for us to, you know, think about that as we're going into the next steps, like you talked about next year with a new plan. So, and it also helps with, you know, with the public and showing where our growth is and where it's expected to be and where we currently need space. With all these expansions, you mentioned with Hammond Bay the idea of a neighborhood learning, you've mentioned childcare spaces. Is the ministry talking at all at this point about including childcare spaces in these expansions? Or, because it seems to me like there's a direction that the province is trying to go. I don't know if the two ministries are working hand in hand, but I don't know, is that a conversation that's being had?
I can start, or you go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say that the ministry's asked us in the Hammond Bay proposal to put it in.
Okay, good.
They've asked us to test the water. They think this is a prime project to do that, and so we will certainly take advantage of that.
Yeah, okay.
And see what happens.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I sense a bit of a transition with the ministry, where they had previously indicated NLCs for new builds only. I think in order to work with MCFD, they're starting to look at NLCs on expansion projects, and that would give districts the ability to apply for daycare and to work with the groups to try and meet the mandate of MCFD. And in a teleconference we had a few months ago with respect to them gathering input about MCFD's capital plans, the Ministry of Ed was on the line. So our two planning, the regional executive planning officers were on with MCFD. So I think you're correct. They are trying to get that alignment. And so, you know, Hammond Bay is going to be our first shot. We do have to look at it ourselves and put the application in ourselves. In other words, show the need. However, as we move through that, there may be opportunities for in some of these additions. I wanted to point out that a couple of things going on here. Mike and I did this work because we noticed a change because of the class size. So we saw a change in the number of rooms needed, not necessarily the number of students over capacity. And so that was one of the drivers for us to show this, to actually demonstrate that we have this growing need, and to, you know, each year we can sort of update that. The other one was the ministry said, don't be afraid to put these in. Show us out to year 5 what you think your growth is, and we'll put these in our notional plans so that when we go to the Treasury Board, we can indicate what districts are telling us the capital needs are into the future. And so, however, when you compare us to other districts, yeah, 4 rooms on a school is not really a hardship situation in the ministry's mind. So I'm not under the illusion that we're going to get 2 or 3 additions of 4 classrooms in schools, but we keep following the process and focusing on our high strategic initiatives.
Just as a comparison, this time last year, I think we had a total of 5 expansion projects that we were putting in our plan, and this year it's 10.
So in our replacement program, these haven't changed. We took Ladysmith Intermediate and NDSS out. So we're still saying to the ministry, we've got an aged DAC and we've got an aged DOC that are going to need to be addressed in the future. I won't go through the details of those projects. Building envelope, Mike, you want to briefly?
We did get, the ministry did support the BEP program ask at Mountain View, Dover, and Ladysmith. However, they have not contacted us at all. BC Housing was to contact us. I think they're overwhelmed with the number of BEP projects they have, and just the outdated costing associated with them.
So we've done, the request is the same as last year with no change and no work done on it. We're just waiting for the ministry, so.
And those are 12-year-old estimates from BC Housing.
Yeah, they're in your package if you're interested in looking at them.
School enhancement program for this year, we are asked to submit 5 projects of value between $100,000 and $3 million. And those are the 5 there. First up is Park Avenue. This is a 3-phase project. We did get funded for phase 1 in 18-19, so we're looking for phase 2 for the HVAC upgrade. 16-unit ventilators, rooftop air handling unit. Second up, this is a bundled project, so this is 2 dust extractors, one for John Barsby, one for Ladysmith, to address health and safety concerns. $900,000 total. We've upped the budget slightly this year based on tender results from our most recent dust extractor tenders.
So the last group, Mike, would be our own shop and
Cedar.
Cedar
And that finishes off. Yeah.
That would be next year.
Yeah. Third up is roofing replacement. We've got in 5 schools with a budget of $780,000. Just to align with our annual re-roofing program. Washroom renewal. So there are certain categories of SEP funding. Washrooms was added last year, as was flooring, so we'll see that one next. So this is to upgrade washrooms in NDSS, Barsby, Dover, Mountain View, Pleasant Valley, and Pauline Hare. We've targeted high-use washrooms, and with the intent that we would do something in a gender-neutral, everyone washroom refit in those. Flooring. We've put together a flooring package of $416,000. I think there's what, 15 schools there to supplement our annual flooring renewal program, which is about $100,000 a year through AFG. There's a backlog, and this would address a good portion of that.
And the SET program really is addressing that place that the ministry is trying to focus the money, where there are projects that are difficult to take out of your AFG, but are required prior to a major building renovation renewal. And so, I think that last year we hit $1.7 million, which is a significant amount of money to assist the district. So.
And SEP is also focused on targeting the actual school sites and buildings with address VFA requirements, so we can report out on that, and it increases. Carbon neutral capital program, Cinnabar, again, we put this back in our capital plan this year. We didn't get it last year, so it'll stay. You have the budget to more market conditions.
So the bus replacement program, we updated our inventory, we looked at the ministry criteria, and we're not eligible for a new bus. So our fleet's still in pretty good condition. We're still forecasting 2021 is the next replacement requirement.
And playground enhancement, last one. We've selected 3. We're allowed to submit our top 3 playground enhancement projects. We had a third-party inspector that comes around annually, and he's done a report. So we're looking at to focus on the 3 worst sites.
And typically the older wood equipment is classified as requiring replacement, and then some of it is just older pieces of equipment that are at the time to be taken out of the inventory.
And we also look at the work orders. Some of these are taking a lot of work throughout the year just to keep safe.
That's it. We'd be happy to answer any.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for putting together this comprehensive and detailed report. There's a big ask here, And certainly, we are under no illusions that the ministry will only probably fund 80 or 90% of this whole ask. But we'll be able to get by with that. But on a serious note, thank you very much for putting this together. If the board approves this recommendation, we are hopeful that it's our turn in this district, and they will, the ministry will look at us favorably to move forward on one or some of our asks. So thank you for putting this together. Trustee Brennan?
The recommendation on page 75.
Seconder, Trustee Brozovic, any discussion?
Well, just I concur with your comments. Very detailed report and good explanation of the matters surrounding it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Uh, 15.1, Secretary Treasurer McVeigh and Executive Director of Communications, Burgos.
Yes. Dale's actually going to come up and just present the feedback in respect of our operating surplus and deficit policy.
Everyone's leaving, as I get. Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, I was asked to give a highlight of the feedback that we received during the notice of motion, 30-day notice of motion. And that took place from May 23rd to June 22nd, 2018. In total, hold on to your seats, we received 3 emails containing feedback. Some thoughts include, however, you have received the copies of the feedback earlier this week. Some thoughts would include, and I hope I got this all here, surplus minimums listed in the draft policy are too high. District should not cut services in order to meet surplus targets. Funding should be spent on direct services to students in the same fiscal year it was received. Allocate more funds to establishing adequate emergency preparedness, for example, water, food, blankets, and training. Have an annual review of the contingency funds that have a multi-year spending analysis as part of the report out to the board. Align policy with BCSTA guidelines for emergency capital assessment, asset replacement, transfer of funds, and priority allocation of operating surpluses. And the last piece, highlight or separate increases to restricted surplus during the budget process. And I can share those with you after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
What our next steps are?
Yes, yeah, Dale? What are our next steps?
In terms of next steps, what we will do is take the feedback, limited as it was, into consideration and bring forward in September a final policy and admin procedure for the board. So unless there's any concerns around that, that would be the intention.
Do we have the deadline of June 30th for this? I mean, obviously it's not a dead deadline.
Soft deadline.
Yeah,
that wasn't very much time to deal with something.
No, it wasn't. Soft deadline of June 30th, and we haven't been asked recently in terms of having these policies and other committees and whatnot under the recommendations for health governance in place, but they would simply look to us to see that we actually are working on it and it's well underway. So I think we're fine in that regard.
Anybody else? All right, moving on to new business. We have none. We had none at the beginning of the meeting, but Trustee Solomon passed me a note, and what is the will of the board here? He wanted to mention something in his report that he had forgotten about our trustee fund, and he just has some information and details. So does anybody have any objection to us adding this to the agenda right now in new business? Seeing none. Trustee Solomon.
Thanks very much. I'm sorry I got missed, but it's not a big deal, but I thought it should be brought to the board. I think everyone's aware that the Nanaimo Ladies to School Foundation does an incredible job, and they disperse hundreds of thousands of dollars on an annual basis, mainly in terms of scholarships. I know a number of the trustees have decided that they would like to be a part of contributing back via the Nanaimo Ladies to School Foundation. And I thought it was important to put it out, how that money is being dispersed. And I think it's been, with Crystal's help, I think it's been dispersed exceptionally well. Last year, of course, $2,500 went out mainly to Brecken for their books, and Ladysmith Intermediate and Primary for coding and robotics, and Quarterway supported 9 schools for coding and robotics, and Rock City also their makerspace. This year we had $3,500 go out to a number of different projects, including Bayview Aboriginal Books, Seaview Joyful Literacy Interaction, Rock City Early Literacy, Frank Ney Self-Regulation, Randerson Loose Parts in the primary program, NDSS West Coast Wilderness Studies, and Cinnabar through STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. So I just really thankful for the board to support this project. I think that it's a great thing for trustees to be involved with, and I suggest if any other contributing member wishes to talk to it, please do. I think it's something to celebrate for our board.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
For information, board motions, any objections to receiving the board motions? Seeing none, any objections to receiving the vandalism reports? Seeing none, and before we go to question period, I think it's important to note that this is Superintendent Blaine's last meeting as the superintendent of our school district. I want to thank you, John, on behalf of the board for all your hard work, your commitment, your dedication to this school district. You have put us on a road of stability and put us in a proper place, and we saw that tonight with the budget that we passed. So on behalf of the board, sincerely, thank you very much.
Thank you.
His TV channel will always be tuned.
Yeah,
Can
I
Run for trustee now.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I speak? Yeah.
Absolutely.
There is something I'd like to say, and
Call for an adjournment.
no, please. Publicly, because it is an opportunity for me to be able to say how proud I am that you gave me the opportunity to do the work. It was something that I questioned myself for when I first came up to the board level, and I was also excited about it. So I felt like a new learner all over again, like our students do, taking risks and those types of things. And the opportunity to lead the district with you and to accomplish the common goals that we developed was, for me, a very, very pivotal part of my career, and I thank you for that opportunity. I learned from lots of people, almost every person I talked to on the way through. I was able to observe boards of the past and appreciate the work that they had done and the frustrations that they had gone through, and taking those experiences to be able to develop some thoughts and ideas here. The fortunate side of that were my thoughts and ideas shared with yourselves, working it through the board, developed into some things that we could build upon. So I'm really excited for the school district. I think the board and everybody involved should take an opportunity in a breath where this district has taken all of the struggles, all of the good work from a lot of people to get to this point. And we really want to cherish that, and we want to maintain that. And the district is returned to a place across the province. Everywhere I go, I hear about the work that we're doing, and it's contagious. So I thank you for that opportunity. I congratulate yourselves on the leadership that you've demonstrated. And we all know none of this is easy, and we all have to have thick skin. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, any questions? Seeing none. Anybody have an objection to an adjournment? Good night, everybody. Thanks. Have a great summer, everyone. Thank you.